a stranger. I can tarry but a night. Do not detain me, for I am going to where the fountains are ever flowing. I'm a pilgrim and I'm a stranger. I can tarry but a night. There the glory is ever shining. Oh, my longing heart is there. Here in this country, so dark and dreary, I long have wandered, forlorn and weary. I'm a pilgrim and I'm a stranger. I can tarry but a night. There's the city to which I journey. My Redeemer is its light. There is no sorrow, nor any sighing, nor any tears there, nor any dying. I'm a pilgrim and I'm a stranger. I can tarry but a night.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Remedial Protestantism podcast. This is number 23 for 2025, and my guest today is Sister Ingrid from, she's coming to us from Fries, I probably mispronounced it here, Friesland, Netherlands.
Yes.
All right. Welcome aboard, Sister. A couple of years ago, I believe we did an audio podcast together, but it's been a while. But as I was watching GC session 2025, I saw you again. I said, I know that person. So welcome to our podcast.
Yes, thank you.
So we're going to talk today about a possible solution to some of the challenges we have. Let's see what I can do here. I'm doing a couple things a little bit new here today. I'm going to have a disclaimer. Here's the disclaimer. The views expressed in this podcast are my own. They're not necessarily those of my employer. And not even what my guest says isn't necessarily my views. But if it's from Ingrid, I'm betting I'm going to have a lot of agreement with it. I also want to say I am Larry the guy from Michigan, but very soon I think there's going to be an announcement, I think tomorrow. I'm not going to spoil it here, but I'll be Larry the guy from Michigan. So I'll leave that kind of hanging in the air. All right, let's come on. By the way, nobody told me to put the disclaimer in. I just thought maybe I should do that. Okay. All right, we're back. We want to get started here. And Ingrid, I want to thank you for coming.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm honored to be on your program. Yes.
Well, we're honored to have you because I believe it's 3 a.m. or thereabouts in your part of the world, and so
yes, I'm sitting here with small eyes.
We appreciate you doing this for us.
Yes.
Yeah. So when we kind of boil down the issues, some of the issues that are currently facing the church, one of the key issues has been the authority of the General Conference, some of the different General Conference committees and people during or in between, I should say, sessions. Of course, in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the ultimate authority is the General Conference in session.
Yes.
We believe that the Holy Spirit works through the delegates from all over the world. The Holy Spirit is working through them all. And so we take pains to get together and we want to hear from each other. We believe the Holy Spirit works through the experience of each person. And so the delegates each have a vote, and we're not just, we don't have like one guy at the top that has the vote, or a handful of people that have a vote, but we have a whole thousands of delegates, hopefully, that have a vote.
Yes.
So that's very important because that's a very fundamental piece of Seventh-day Adventist church polity. We believe that the authority is from the Father to Jesus. It goes from Jesus to his church. When it comes to his church, the authority is vested in the membership. I mean, each individual member, and then they delegate a certain amount of that authority to representatives and officers and so on that go all the way out to the General Conference in session.
Yes, 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 yes.
So
And I
that's how
think
we
that that's important to maintain also. And in fact, at the beginning of the sessions, it was pronounced also, the ninth testimony quotation of Ellen White: God has ordained that the authority is in the GCN session.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
it's delegated. It's a constituency model that we have.
And so in between GC sessions, whether it's 2 years or 5 years, normally it's 5 years, which I would argue that that's I have argued that that's too far between. Where the things are changing in our world so rapidly. How can we do one meeting for a week or 2 weeks every 5 years? I mean, giant changes can happen in our world at that time, but it's also very expensive. So anyway, these are things that intelligent people will figure out. But anyway, what we want to talk about today pertains, I think, more to the General Conference in between sessions. Sometimes in between sessions, statements have been made. This really only started in the 1980s or thereabouts, if I recall correctly, and a variety of statements, maybe as many as 50 or 60 or more statements voted.
More. Yes.
Okay. Yes, voted by some of the committees and officers in between sessions, which seem to be presented as like all of us in the world just agree on those statements. And yet we may not, most of the members, I'd say 99% of our members probably don't even know these statements exist. There's one or two that we probably, more of us know exists because of what happened in 2020, 2021. But anyway, that's a fundamental issue, is how much authority do the workers have in between sessions? And so this is why I wanted to speak with Ingrid and share that here in this podcast, because I know that, Ingrid, you have done some work. You even had a proposal that you were working on, and I'm not sure whatever happened with that, but pardon me, I think you have slide presentations, and you want to share the ASC proposal. Tell us a little bit more about that, and then maybe we'll jump into that, and then we'll have opportunity. By the way, I'll mention also, for those of you who are watching, feel free to type in, if you're on the YouTube stream anyway, type in your comments, and we'll try to add them and respond to them as we go. So, but anyway, go ahead, Ingrid, and give us just a little synopsis here before we begin. Then we'll have you sort of work your way through your presentation, depending on how we do it here tonight. And hopefully we'll have a good discussion about this here, because that's one reason I have this podcast. It's not because we have all the answers, or I have all the answers. I have very few answers. But I do think that there's a lot of really important discussions that are not happening. They don't seem to happen, or they're even suppressed sometimes in some of our more official venues. And this gives us an opportunity to have some family discussions, and we need that, or we're not even a family. So
yes, we need that also to build trust. At the General Conference, I have been in CBCs, I think, for more than 11 years or something like that.
Our people may not know what CBC stands for.
Constitution and Bylaws Committees of my union.
Right. You're the chair of the Constitution and Bylaws Committee for Netherlands Union, is that correct?
For the Netherlands Union, yes, for the Netherlands Union. And I've always had access to the working policy. And I've seen through the years how paragraphs have been rephrased and got a double meaning about who is delegating what to whom. And it's clear that the executive committee has a delegated authority. But if you go to old working policy, it was emphasized very clearly that that authority is administrative. And those words have been erased. And I think we as a church has a setback that when we gather with 3,000 people, obviously you cannot have a very broad discussion on every point and every comma and but the delegates only get bits and pieces of a paragraph underlined or stricken out, and that's why the delegates are allowed to discuss about on and vote on, but the overview is missing. And if you go to the current working policy, then you come across paragraphs that are contradicting each other and also contradicting where the authority, the administrative authority lie and where the delegating authority is. Delegating authority obviously is General Conference in session. But how far does that reach? And there are also articles, paragraphs in the working policy that are supposed to be administrative. But if you read it as it is, the executive committee has way much more authority than our church system allows, our church structure allows. So that's what during the session, I thought, well, we can do this better. We had a task a few years ago. We had a study committee on the theology of ordination. Maybe we need a study committee on the authority to review the working policy text on authority and clarify that for the membership. I thought I heard that the GC has promised to put the working policy online or to make it accessible for GC delegates. I think that's a good thing because I think we need the overview to make good decisions. We need to be well informed.
Well, I think you have a slide deck here, and maybe the thing to do is give you kind of space here to work your way through your presentation. And tell us a little bit more in detail before we get into more discussion about it. So, it looks like we've got the slide there for you. Go ahead, Ingrid, and sort of work your way, bring us through here, and I may have questions along the way.
I don't know how it works. Do I manage it myself?
Yeah, I think you can advance the slides by pressing on an arrow on your screen on your end of the interface there.
Oh, here. Oh, yes. Okay.
All right.
Yes. Well, I went up to the microphone and I made this statement. There was a lot about TMI, presentations about TMI, and
involvement. Total member involvement.
Total member involvement, yes. And I was from the start. I was all in for TMI, but TMI is, I think, has to level up. It's not only it must not only be anymore about mission, but also about governing. And while being there at the GC, I kind of experienced that we cannot listen. We don't hear each other. We all get 2 minutes, but we don't hear what we are saying. We don't listen to each other. And we don't listen. We pray every session, but I think we don't listen even to the Holy Spirit. We don't hear the cry of our people. And I think that if trust is a big thing and unity is a big thing in our church, we ought to be able to listen and to understand what the people are saying, and also to give the delegates more room to debate and to discuss and to ask questions. Why do we strike out this sentence? Why do we put this in? And what does it mean for the overall view of the working policy? And that's what I said, TMI also on the board table. And TMI in governance, I think, is to truly engage delegates, to have a spiritual kind of hearing and a spiritual kind of listening, not only to noises and not only to shut down the discussion, because that happened a lot at the GC. There were some people who the only contribution they had at GC session was to call previous question. And most
discussion, if it's voted through,
yes, that's to stop the discussion. And
right.
And to me, it was abuse of that rule, because many people who did that had their say, and then they called previous questions. And that is, well, I have my say, and you all guys, you shut up. That's what came over to me. I think we have to have highly educated people in our church, not only people with in theology, but in every profession. And we have to value that and use that. And we have to abide by the structures that we say that we are. And transparency, trust, and true involvement, that's where unity starts. We tend to make unity a starter, but unity is, to me, an outcome. Just like I kind of compare it with the Greek widows in Acts. They complained, and we never read that their complaints were valid. But the leadership listened and they acted, and the outcome was unity. And even the bystanding priests came into accepted the gospel, because they saw unity, they saw listening, they saw hearing, and they saw acting.
With those, you can actually have unity, but sometimes unity is in short supply. When we don't listen to each other, unity is going to be in short supply.
Yeah, in short supply, because you get what you see is you get distrust, distrusting leadership that do not trust the membership, and the membership that do not trust the leadership. So it works both ways, and both ways it's breaking up the church. So my proposal is also total member involvement in governance. And when we say total member in governance, we ought to know what is our governance model, and who is delegating whom to do what, and how do we hold the leadership accountable for the task we as General Conference in session has given them. Of course, you said already 5 years is a very long time. In 1 year, in a few months, COVID shut up the whole world, and then you have to act. But what authority do you give a church leadership to make conscious decisions for the membership? And I think the last few years have shown that that's a big thing. And the membership, especially our young membership, will not be as, how do you say it in English, follow-some as we old guys. They don't accept. They want to be informed, and they want good answers for their questions. The problem I see that's undermining the church is that we say the General Conference in session has the highest authority, but the General Conference in session is not even allowed to put a pressing matter on the agenda. we are not even allowed to change the agenda. At this session, there was voting first for a daily program. And I went to the microphone and I said, well, if we accept the daily program, we have accepted the agenda. And that's the way it turned out to be. So, and even the rules of order, I heard one of the, I think the parliamentarian said one day that the rules of order were issued by the executive committee, but it's the order rules of the session. In my profession, I lead a lot of meetings, and the agenda is for the members in the meeting, and also the order is of the meeting. So it's a kind of frustrating, I think, for adults if we say that our church consists of adults, conscientious adults who come in the church as adults, and we expect them to discuss as adults, and we cannot even allow for a pressing matter to come to the agenda. And in fact, there were a lot of things in the agenda that were editorials. And there was a few years ago, there was a solution on the GC session that editorials could be made by the committee by itself. We talked about capitalization of words. I don't think that we had to do that.
Well, if you're going to get together 2,000 or 3,000 delegates from all over the world, that means that's prime time. I mean, that there should be an enormous focus on getting those delegates together and letting them actually have a family discussion, actually sort out and work things out. There should be more space out of the total. I know they've got there's a long list of stuff they want to get addressed. I understand that. But if you're going to pay up for 2,000 or more delegates, you need to let those delegates mix with each other and work on some stuff together.
And I think, there was what I was pleased with is that when on the first day I went to the microphone and I said we ought to listen to each other, we ought to hear what we are saying, we ought to hear the cry of the people and the anguish of the people, because there was a lot of anguish in the past few years because of the fact statements. Let's not beat around the bush. That was the elephant in the room, the pink elephant in the room. And
the glowing orange neon elephant.
Yeah?
I say it was the glowing orange neon elephant in the room.
Yes. And what I have experienced is that there was a kind of listening, because there were a lot of referrals to the committee, to the Constitution and Bylaws Committee, to the Church Manual Committee, and the leadership, the chair, the parliamentarian, and also the secretary of the committees, they created room for delegates to convene with the committee.
Good.
Obviously, that is also the structure. If you commit something, you can go up and say and explain why you have committed it. And that was good. That was good, because there were amendments to the Constitution and bylaws, to the bylaws, for instance, bylaws, I think it was Article 13, that was retracted because of the convening with the committee. So I think we can do it. But there are also delegates. There were a few delegates who came up to me and said, "You talk too much. Your only role."
Every delegate has the opportunity to speak up.
Yes, there was an NID union officer who came up to me and said, "You're frustrating the structure of the church. Our only duty here is to vote up or to vote down. To vote down. We don't have to discuss."
Well,
Well,
that's his
if
opinion, but you're the
well,
delegate.
yes, if that is the role of the delegate, I think we can do that by email. We can send the proposals by email and say, voted up or voted down.
Mhm.
The ask purpose is my proposal is I drafted it with a few delegates, but I submitted it on my own, because in our church it's kind of a big thing to do things together as delegates. It is not encouraged. So I didn't press people to put signatures under a proposal. My proposal is that a study committee will study where does the authority reside and how do it come to the front in the working policy, in the constitution and bylaws, in the church manual, and to clear those texts up, to let them say what they mean to say and not to be ambiguous. And report as a truly standing committee to the session 2013 without directions of EXCOM. So have it be a committee that is accountable to the session, because I think it's very important that the delegates in session are more aware of what the authority is that they are delegating to the EXCOM.
So you're proposing a committee be assembled with the right people in the mix to
Mm-hmm.
look at how the church authority runs, how it's delegated in the current working policy, study that, find discrepancies or ambiguities,
Yes.
sort it out, and report back, not really so much to the executive committee of the general conference, but report back to the general conference session, the next one in line, which for now is 2030,
Yeah.
so that they would look then at that and debate about that and potentially enact some changes, some clarifications of how much authority this section has, how much authority that section has, clarifications of ambiguities, remove
Yes.
duplications, or and maybe put some authority in places where some guardrails in where presently there's no guardrails, and people can just feel like they can run
Yes.
wild and do whatever they want. Is that what you're getting
Yes.
at?
That's what the objective is, and to make those proposals also, to bring those proposals to the floor, and also to show the delegates, because delegates have no access to the working policy, to show them how the language has been changed. If you go from 1966, for instance, to now, you go into the minutes of the annual councils and the general conference, you can follow those minutes at the archives website, yearbook website, and then you see how the text has been gradually become fake in where the authority is.
So are you saying
And
that compared in the 1960s, for example, in the last half of the 1960s, that the authority of the General Conference was more limited in scope, and that in recent times the authority has increased? Because if the authority of the General Conference has increased somewhat in recent time, then that authority must have come from somewhere. So I would presume then that there's less authority in other sections of the church, more authority that the General Conference is given or has granted to itself, whereas in
mhm,
the 1960s, more authority was vested in other places within the church, because you've only got so much authority
I'm
So
not talking about the 1960s. I'm talking about the period, the years after Utrecht. You know,
okay,
1995,
okay.
1996. In fact, I have a slide. I have a slide to show you what. Let me go through it. It doesn't go any further.
Uh-oh,
Here,
got it.
if you, it's a little bit small,
Here,
but
let
this
me
is.
make as big as I can. Here we go.
Oh yeah, this was Article 8, Article 13 in 1995, the working policy in 1995. In the intervals between sessions, the General Conference, Executive Committees delegated the authority to act on behalf of the General Conference in session, acting on behalf, including the authority to elect, remove, etc.
Okay.
And they rephrased it in July 2000. They rephrased it in as such. During the intervals between sessions, is delegated the authority to act on behalf of General Conference in session. Nothing wrong. The membership of the Executive Committee includes representatives of all divisions of the world field and the presidents of all union conferences and union missions, and therefore speaks for the world church. Speak is in legal terms, speak gives you a lot of authority, because speaks can denote legislating authority. And it's the therefores, how do you say it? It has become common that the authority is at the Executive Committee. Major items acting World Church are considered at annual councils, meetings, Executive Committee, when all members of the committee are present. In this General Conference session, this wording was at the front. But then there was amendment to not only have the annual councils to address major items, but also the spring meeting. That was inserted, that was the proposal at the General Conference session now in 2025, to have the annual council and the spring meeting to have the same agenda.
Now, the spring meeting usually has been financial stuff, and also the the fall council and the spring meeting have both tended to be dominated by North American administrators and workers. So if we give more authority to fall council and spring council, at least in the past, that has sort of weighted things towards North American division, which might or might not be good or bad for the church. Yeah, but it's interesting what you're presenting here, that there have been changes, which I would expect. It's not like it's a big plot or anything necessarily, but there have been changes in what authorities there are, and it seems as though maybe the more authorities have been granted to the executive committee than were there previously.
Yes. And I went up to the committee and I said, well, in every organization, my experience is fall meetings are for budgeting, appropriations, and making new plans. And spring meetings are for control, evaluation. And that is also, I said, if you change this in this article, then you create a contradiction in another article, which says that spring meeting is for planning and control, is for control and for evaluation. And that was then a contradiction. The Constitution and Bylaws Committee, I think, didn't recognize. And if they didn't recognize it, how can we as delegates know what we are voting on?
Right. Here's a comment. As
Mhm.
he looked at his list of delegates in his union, he said the majority of them were employees of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. They weren't necessarily, did not appear to him to be lay people. I think I was hearing somewhere, sister, that they designate pastors as lay people, even though they are church employees. And if you're a conference officer, then you're considered a church employee.
Mhm.
And it is true that that the pastors are treated here. We're basically, pastors are as though they're self-employed in many respects, and yet also they're like employees in many respects. So there's kind of a squishy spot there. Um, but that's an interesting observation, because if we want to be lay led as our dominant thing, which I think is what we want,
Mhm.
then to have pastors counted as lay people, maybe that makes the number work, but the pastors actually are employed by the church, uh,
Mhm.
and so that may be kind of out of sync with
Yes.
what the
Yes.
expectation was. Let me get us
Yes.
back to your screen for your slides there. Oh,
Yeah.
no, not
Yeah.
that one. This
Let's
one.
let's
Not
go
that
back
one.
to.
This one. Okay.
There was also another proposal at this conference session, and that was later in, I think, Sec B, Sec 2 in the Article 18 of the bylaws, and that is that is yellowed highlight there. If you can put it on screen a little bit bigger, Larry.
Right. Let me see if we can get it full screen here.
Yes. And that was about the spring meetings. And the proposal was to erase the word regular and to have it say that at spring meetings, um, it's for financial reports of the General Conference and for transacting executive committee business. That means all business.
Uh-huh.
And then I said, what are we erasing if we erase regular? I have to ask it 3 times. What are we erasing if we erase regular? Because we as delegates must understand why we erase it. What was the initial intent of the word regular? Was it a restriction or not? And why are we erasing the restriction now? And that is, I think, the little things, the little foxes that have made the authority structure of the church fake. Because
Okay.
little by little, you erase a word here, you put a word there. I don't think it's intentional. Because I said also at the CBC, I said, well, if we do this, then we have a contradiction with, I think it's B40, where it says what the spring meeting is, because there the word regular still is still there.
Uh-huh.
So I'm kind of a nerd with policy because my profession is to make policy and to analyze policy for the Dutch government, provincial government. And I've done that 35 years
Well, you
now.
sound like you must be a person who's very, after 35 years of that, you must be very clear-minded about how a lot of this works or is supposed to work.
Yes, words do matter. And we
They
know
do.
from the thief at the cross, a comma does matter.
Uh,
A
So
comma
let's
in a
keep
text.
moving here, and now some of us might get more into some of the detail point, but for the bigger picture for our viewers, let's kind of keep moving and
Yeah, let's go
talk
back
about detail.
to the what the proposal is.
Okay.
Um, in the proposal, I have divided a kind of, I think, 7 objectives, and one of the objectives is to see. That's also one of the task of the committee, to see how we can strengthen session governance and how we can strengthen the dialogue at sessions, and maybe to have division at division level, to have caucuses to decide on division level what are the pressing matters in divisions that we would want to address at GC session, and to propose per division 1 or 2 pressing agenda items to bring to the floor, and to discuss with the delegates if that is something that we ought to discuss. For instance, there was also a amendment that passed about tithing, giving people in the church the authority to go behind your back and ask other people, the nominating committee, to ask other people outside of the nominating committee if you are a faithful tithing member to be eligible for office. I said that is a huge privacy breach in Europe. And I tried to reconsider that motion, but because I have voted, I didn't vote for that motion. I couldn't reconsider, even though I, as a European member, could bring in information that legitimate interest is not an what do you say it? You cannot say that the church has legitimate interest to breach the privacy of its members. So how can we bring in every division, every part of the world church has its own little things, its own challenges that delegates want to bring into a session? And how can we harness the professionalism of members, of lay members? Because obviously, I think the union officers, they convene in executive committee already, and I think for them too, it is sometimes a little bit difficult to see the discrepancies in what they are voting for.
It seems that the first thing to do is build trust. You shouldn't come along and talk a lot about tithing without building trust first. And in more recent time, I think we can do better by really demonstrating, building trust and demonstrating that earning trust.
Yes.
And we can talk about tithe details after we've earned some trust, but to talk about it when giant things are left dangling and are kind of prevented from being addressed is kind of the totally backwards approach.
Yes, but how do you build trust? We have a saying in Dutch. They say trust comes by foot and runs by horse.
Interesting.
So how do you catch a running horse? How do you build trust? I came across an annual council presentation about what glues the church together. I have that slide. I think one of us, the second slide. And the presentation was about working policy. Working policy doesn't build trust. Working policy as a legal structure, transparency, listening, hearing, that is what builds trust. Being accountable. Say, well, I did something wrong. Acknowledge that you as a leadership of the world church made a wrong decision, because we are human. We can make wrong decisions. In fact, Ellen White
forgive each other too for making wrong decisions.
Yes, and Ellen White in fact says that even though the General Conference in session is the highest authority, it doesn't mean that every decision they make is a good decision. We ought to keep that in mind. And if a decision is proven not to be good, we must have a process that we can reconsider. But then you see the voting level gets higher, even if the information that was foundational to the previous decision was wrong.
Mhm.
How do we correct that?
And then you have also the problem or the challenge of institutional momentum. And you probably see that. I assume you see some of that in Dutch government. We would see it, I suppose, in every kind of government or every large institution. Once things start rolling in one direction, a lot of times it's very difficult for things to stop and get readjusted and moving in another direction. So that makes the delegate process, the debate process, I don't mean debate in a pugilistic sense, but I mean debate in a creative, discerning. Let's work to find out how the Holy Spirit's leading us together. In that sense, that makes that all the more important. So so I see whether you have several objectives for the proposed authority study committee. And what else have we got here? Let's move along a little bit further so we can keep
Revise some articles. If a decision has been made to change a passage in the working policy, that becomes the standard for the next decision. And it's not necessarily wrong, but is the decision you are taking, is that in sync with what you say you are? So revise all the authoritative passages in the working policy and hold them against the light and see if they are saying what is meant by the structure of the church. Revise ambiguous language, amend, I think it's B1020 passage of the working policy that it pertains only to the administrative authority of EXCOM and ADCOM, because how it's phrased now, it's ambiguous. And clarify also, I think it's B15, that says that if there is a crisis, the three officers can make any decision they want for the whole world church, even doctrinal decisions. If you read that right, they can even make doctrinal decisions because there is a crisis. But
well, I mean, even in the Catholic Church, I think that they would have to go through the College of Cardinals.
And in our church, there is no provision for checks on theological counsel for that B1510 passage. And I think we must have a check on that. I did also a proposal to the administration to split PARL into a religious liberty department and a separate public relation department, because to me public relation is corporative and religious liberty pertains to the membership, and you cannot have that vested in one person, because public relation is also talking to United Nations, talking to the state, and as we know that there will be a conflict.
I think there's a very good argument to be made for these to be separate items. Religious liberty be one thing and public relations to be another.
Yes.
That's probably a different program, a different podcast, but
yes.
I definitely think that is something that should be reconsidered and revisited.
Yes.
So now so what we have with some of the challenges we've had in the church has been in between sessions. We have statements that have come out, some statements which have been extremely controversial and have a lot of suffering connected with them, whether that was the intention or not. That seems to have been the way it worked out, especially in certain places. So here's a question. So even if we limit it, if the World Church were to limit it through its working policy or through the study committee here, and you make a proposal and it's accepted by the General Conference in 2030 in session, So you have between sessions, the governing officers, they can make administrative decisions, but they cannot make doctrinal statements on behalf of the church. It has to be done by the GC in session. So even if you make that, clarify that and lock that in place, how do we keep it so that that's what actually happens? How do we prevent people from declaring? Because every time there's well, maybe not every time, but often when there's an issue, and it's a theological issue. Let's just take an example, if you don't mind. Women's ordination. Women's ordination is absolutely a very deeply theological issue, and yet many have said at the time when that was a large issue that was happening, said, "Oh, this is just a policy issue. This isn't a theological issue. This is a policy issue." So when it's a policy issue, it's legitimate, fair grounds for administrators to come in and work it around and fix it. But if it's a theological issue, now it's hold on, put on the brakes. The people have to speak. The people have to be led by the Holy Spirit to make a decision on a global basis. So how we lock things down so that administrators are truly administrating and not creating theological statements on behalf of a church which has not approved those statements, and that those theological statements come in a GC session. How do we do that? How do we get to that?
Yeah, I think that is also a matter of trust, and a matter of we also have stewardship in governance. If you are a leader, you have your authority has boundaries, and I think it's a matter of it may be perceived as a very strong word, but it's a matter of integrity to stay between the boundaries of your delegated authority. And I think that
a matter of integrity.
You're
appointed to this. You work in this. You don't work over here.
You don't go and you don't seek to put authority on your table if it's not yours. And I think it's also a constituency thing, because the union officers convene every fall with the executive committee, and every proposal comes to the table there. Almost every proposal, not every, but almost every proposal. Every structural working policy proposal is voted by the union officers, by the top leadership of the church. We cannot blame the 3 officers of the General Conference alone, because it's a whole constituency that let it happen. You know that this General Conference session is the first time the agenda of the session did not come to the table at the Annual Council.
That's interesting. I wonder how many people know that. Is that correct? That it wasn't
did not come to the table of the Annual Council. And I spoke to some officers, and they told me that they expected then that it would come to the table at the spring meeting. But when it did not, they asked, why we didn't have a recommendation for the agenda of the General Conference session. And they were told, that's not your job. That's ours. This is the first time that this has happened. So I think I said to one of those officers, you as a body had the duty to protest louder, to demand the agenda, to see the agenda, and to have a say in the agenda, because that's what we are told. You are constituents of all the backfields, and you should have had a say in the agenda.
Well, if the authority rests in the membership, then even when you go to the General Conference session, the authority should come up from below
From
and
below,
promote
yes.
things rather than come down from on top and we say, this is our agenda, and you have to do our agenda. I mean, I understand you have to set the agenda. I get that.
I get that too. And I get that too, that you cannot have 3,000 people setting an agenda.
Of course not.
But what are the pressing matters? And have people, and that is, I think, that is what builds trust. That people have the feeling that they are taken seriously, because otherwise, we spent how many millions we spent for a GC session? I was very annoyed to see that on the second day there were already 500 delegates missing. We get $600 to spend on our own. Every one day, the hotel cost was nearly $200. That's also a matter of integrity of the delegates to do their duty. It's duty time. It's not vacation.
Right.
To
But I
me, it's
think a
not
lot of
vacation.
people, they finally, I find this is my first time to come to America. We've got to check it all out. But
Yeah.
we're not sent here for that purpose. They're sent here on behalf of their local church, the church.
For me, it was duty time.
Yeah. Well, I'm thankful
I'm
for
not
that.
an expert.
I'm thankful for that. I think we want to see more people feeling that way. So anything else you want to share there from your slide deck?
Let me see. This is the key points that I in the proposal I address some key points that need attention. This is the key point of our structure of our of dividing and authority between session and the executive committee. And there are three major conflicts. I perceive three major conflicts in the working policy, and that is B1020 Sec 1, where the GC, the authority is blurred there. It needs clarification. And B1510, the three officers, we talked about that. There has to be a theological or legal review panel and I think you as an officer would want that too, that someone is with such a big thing, someone is looking over your shoulder on what are we doing here. And article bylaws, article 13 is a very fundamental article. The language there has become ambiguous, has become vague, that needs rewarding, that needs the prices rewarding to really get the delegation right.
Right. So right there, you've got 3 or 4 things that are very clear that could be addressed. It doesn't sound like this would have to be a gigantic process.
No.
But to clarify and let the conference in session decide, how much authority, where are there guardrails or are there not? That seemed like that would be a productive thing. Seemed like it could be a piece towards earning earning trust, which right now I think I would like to see my church laboring to develop trust between some of the leading officers and the members. I think we could use quite an improvement in the trust level.
Yes, we need that. We really need that, because that is what fracturing the church right now. It's a lack of trust, and it goes on both sides. Members to the leadership to the membership.
Right.
Nobody is excused. We are human, and we have to acknowledge that. God also acknowledged that we are human, so we don't have to put ourselves on the standard and say, I know everything, I know it all. Mm-hmm. Specific concerns is how we convene, how we involve delegates. We get them over all parts of the world. Some people had to do a lot of effort to get a visa for America. And then you come there and you have nothing to say. I think that is very frustrating for people You take on your holidays. You spend your holidays. I have no holidays left for this year, for instance, because I went to the GC, and you invest in the church, and then you have to have the feeling that you are taken seriously.
Mhm.
You have to look at the rules of order. Previous question is very, very frustrating because it is abused. And reconsidering, I wanted to reconsider, and I had to lie. And the chair asked me, we are voting privately, we are voting secret ballots with the system. And then you are asked, what have you voted? I have to disclose what I have voted in order to be able to reconsider. That's not right.
Would that be allowed in Dutch government? I'm just curious.
I don't think so. I don't
Okay.
think so. No, I
It
don't
sounds like
think so.
maybe the Dutch government's got a good high standard, and we need
Well,
to strengthen that.
I don't know. I don't know. Everywhere there are things that are not in order, but
Sure,
privacy
sure.
is valued here very, 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 very much. If you say
Oh,
I voted privately, nobody knows what I have voted. How can you ask me in front of 3,000 people to disclose what I have voted in order to bring something to the floor? Let the delegates on their own decide if the information, the additional information, is valid enough to reconsider.
okay.
Don't ask me to disclose my privacy. This I have addressed already, and this is what I think that has to be done. Our goal as a church is not to increase numbers through militant approaches, but to nurture more people to fall in love with Jesus Christ. And if people are not satisfied with the things with happening in the church, we will lose them. We will lose them. We've lost, I think, 800,000 members these 5 years. What are we not doing right? I think we have to do what we can do to keep the members.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, I think this is my last slide.
All right.
Yes, this is my last slide.
Okay. Any of you who are watching, you're free to type in questions and comments. We're just about an hour. We usually go about an hour and 15 minutes or thereabouts. So we might have time for a few questions if you have any. If not, we'll discuss things a little bit more and then we'll wrap it up. So your impressions of the GC session, probably a mixture of good and places for improvement. But
I
still,
am not negative. I've seen things that we can do better and we should do better, but I understand that it's difficult. I understand that I think not even the highest leadership has a good overview about how the text has run away. You know what I mean? How they became vague. And what I say, when a text is voted, that becomes the standard of consideration. And 3,000 people, I'm very much aware that it's not easy. We were housed very good. The food, well, that could be better, but I'm not a picky person about food.
but you
I
used your
commend.
vacation time, so you gave up your vacation time that you would normally perhaps use for your family or whatever. You used that time so you could be at the GC session and be a delegate.
That's what lay people do.
Well, that's the way it should be. I mean, that people are actually invested in the church. They
When
want
you are employed by the church, I think you can work that out. But if you are a lay member, you are a lay delegate, it's your spare time.
Mhm.
And lay people invest a lot in the church.
Yeah. Well, it's been an interesting discussion. I've learned several new things here. You're the idea of the Authority Study Committee. That's a very interesting idea.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you're presenting evidence that the things that are considered, when they're considered, to sort of a degree of shifting of authority towards centralized leadership rather than a decentralization
Yeah.
seems to be in evidence. And again, not that you're not claiming it's a big secret plot or that, but just sometimes the trend moves in a certain direction. So that is, and then of course we have the challenge of, it's kind of a double challenge, really. You have very difficult to get items onto the agenda. And
Mm-hmm.
in the meantime, you have those very items that it's very difficult to get on the agenda. Those were decided by a strange grouping of people or committees in between sessions. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's a very bad combination.
Yeah.
I mean, I can understand that lots of things happen, and there are going to be occasions when you have to deal with things between sessions. Certainly, I understand that you can't put everything on the agenda that you want. I understand. We all understand that.
Yes,
But
we all understand that. Yeah.
to
And you
have
know that there is also one thing that is difficult in this in the way we convene, in the way the structure of the church, is that the delegates are most of the delegates are in every session, the highest level GC session, also in the lowest at the lowest union or conference sessions, delegates are in majority new. We had
right, it's
over
their first time.
50% new people. For them, it's the first time. They don't know what is happening around them, and I think that is there is an obligation for the leadership to be transparent, because it's difficult for new delegates to see the whole picture, to have an overview. So you have to be transparent. Why do we erase this? What did it say and we don't need it to say anymore? And why? And I think that's what I would want because I'm a policy person. That's what I would want.
Well, I appreciate what you brought up here. Now, let me ask you this:
Mhm.
what is the status then of your proposal for the ASC, the Authority Study Committee? Did that get presented or voted, or is it just privately presented?
No, it is not. It's not voted because it was not able to bring it as an agenda point.
So it couldn't be added to the agenda, and therefore it could not even be
It
proposed.
couldn't. We couldn't bring it up as a motion.
Uh-huh.
I drafted it with a couple of members, but I presented the chair of the day said, "Well, thank you. We will forward it to the administration." I haven't heard yet.
Okay. So the administration has it, and they could act on it, but they're not compelled to act on it by a vote of the
No, they are
GC
not.
delegates because
But but Tusk
it
was not a motion.
couldn't
No.
even get on the agenda because the agenda
Yeah.
was filled up with other things. Um,
No, we couldn't bring anything on the agenda. Also, my proposal to split Paul into two separate departments, I couldn't bring that up as a motion.
right, because it couldn't get on the agenda.
It couldn't get on the agenda. We couldn't get it on the agenda.
Right. And like we say, we both understand you can't put everything on the agenda.
But
But
even the fact statement couldn't come to the agenda.
right.
We have seen what has happened with the 25 fact statement.
Well, and that one certainly should have been addressed in some way, and if it didn't get addressed, it should have gone on the agenda. My
Yeah.
personal opinion,
Opinion.
whatever that's worth.
Yes, my too. Yes.
So, all right, Ingrid. Well, any last thought you want to say? I think we'll wrap up here. And but I think you've given us some very interesting things to think about. And
Yes. Oh
yeah,
well, the the proposal for the Ask Committee is not a secret document. So I don't know if you have room to put it on display.
If you have a synopsis of it, or I think the YouTube comments gives you like maybe as much as 5,000 words you can put in the description of the video. So if you had something that was, I don't know how many words I've used up, I'll be using up already, but if you had a 1,000 or 2,000 word synopsis of it, or a link we could put in, I can put it in the show notes at the bottom for anybody who watches this video, and they could find out more. And like you say, it was apparently forwarded to somebody in
the
administration.
Secretariat. Yes, it's to the administration, to the president, to the secretariat. So,
but anyway,
it's
if
not
you have
a document.
Yeah, if you have anything you want me to put in the show notes, just send it on to me, and I'll paste it in.
Okay.
So that way we can have more information for people who might watch this. Some of these, they're watched by a few hundred, 100 people. Other times they get 4,000 views. So it all just depends.
Yeah. You have the PowerPoint also, so you can put it on display if you like. There are notes in the note pages, so people can review what has been.
Well, Ingrid, thank you. Thank you for coming on the program. Thank you for being a delegate. And I'm gonna thank you for being the delegate that talks too much, because I don't think you talk too much. I heard people complaining that you were talking too much, but every delegate has the right. I mean, if you have a legitimate point of information, point of order, if you have something you want to say about a motion that's current, the delegates all have the opportunity to line up and read in their.
As long as it's not private things, I was not promoting myself there.
Right. No, so I think actually the problem is that a lot of our delegates don't talk enough. So,
that's what we are asked to do, to go into discussion with the leadership, because obviously they don't know everything.
Right. We don't know everything, and they don't know everything.
They don't know everything. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, sister. Thank you again. Yes. And hopefully some food for thought, interesting food for thought, and some things here that perhaps haven't been widely thought about in other places. And so on the Remedial Protestantism podcast, we try to make it worth your time as you tune in. And we might wear some people out, but anyway, if you're looking for some kind of substantive substance, I hope we can mostly provide that here. And I think we've done some of that today.
Yeah.
So
because of love of Christ. Yes.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll let you go here, and we'll let everybody go. Have a great week. And
thank you, Larry, for the opportunity.
We'll have one every Sunday night as much as we can.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sister.
Okay. And blessings on your new job.
Thank you. Good night.
Night.